everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Don't Open That Door. I'm your host, Justin, and I'm joined again today by Nico. Nico, how you doing?
I'm doing fine.
Wow.
That was pretty good.
Thank you. I'm pretty pleased with that one.
How you doing, Dan?
I feel pretty on.
Okay, I was going to say. I thought you might be on.
I put you onto this.
Oh, that's good.
As our more eagle-eared listeners might be able to tell, we are reviewing Ju-on.
Are eagles known for their ears?
Eagles actually have great hearing, better than most land mammals and fish. So, Ju-on was released. Ju-on saw its debut, the Japanese version, not the American remake, saw its debut in 2002 at a film festival here in the States, I believe. Please don't hurt me if I'm wrong. And it was directed by Takashi Shimizu, and he was only 30 when this dropped, so good on him. And this is actually the third movie in kind of like the whole Ju-on franchise, so to speak. This movie stars Megumi Okina as Rika Nishina, Misaki Ito as Hitomi Tokunaga, Hirokazu Inoue as Detective Nakagawa, Yoji Tanaka as Yuji Toyama, Yuya Ozeki as Toshio, the creepy little kid, Misa Uehara as Izumi, and Chikako Isomura as Sachie, the old woman. So this movie basically opens up with Rika, who takes care of old people, and she's a volunteer. So, she's leaving work for the day, and they're like, hey, we need you to go check on this old lady. So she goes. There's no one in the house. The old lady's son and his wife aren't in the house either. And, kind of creepy stuff starts happening. She discovers a little boy, Toshio, locked away in a cupboard upstairs. And then a shadow shows up and she passes out. And that's when we get introduced to one major thing that happens in this movie, which is we see a lot of time shifts and a lot of plot shifts. Or not plot, perspective shifts. Mm-hmm. So then we swap to the past and we basically see the old woman, who is Sachie, and her son and daughter. They moved into the house, and by that I mean son and daughter-in-law. And they moved into the house, and we kind of see that the daughter-in-law, Kazumi is stricken by the curse, the Ju-on, and boom, she gets incapacitated / murked. The son, Katsuya, also gets affected by the grudge, the Ju-on, the curse, and he gets screwed over too. All this happens prior to Rika coming into the house. And so apologies to our listeners in advance, but this plot does not get any more concise. So
it really doesn't.
We hop back to the present, and one of Rika, her coworkers, shows up and finds her kind of, unconscious. So he calls the cops. They do a big investigation. Long story short, this house is actually cursed. There was a family here, and the husband essentially thought the wife was cheating on him, killed her cat, most likely killed their kid. But unfortunately for him, all the people he killed came back as ghosts and killed him. And now they're all ghosts, and they haunt whoever comes into the house. And that takes us to the concept of Ju-on. The movie explains what it is in one of the opening scenes, and it's a curse born of someone who dies held in the grip of anger. So as the movie progresses, we see basically a wide assortment of people who they enter the house either knowing about the grudge or they don't know about the grudge. There's an attempt to try and burn the house down, but that fails. And at the end of the movie, we basically see kind of an apocalyptic vision of Tokyo almost. I believe this takes place in Tokyo, if I'm not mistaken. And where the streets are just barren, a ton of missing people posters everywhere. And it's almost like the curse has spread. And that's one of the things that happens in this movie is the curse does spread, and, even people not currently in the house can get killed. There's a lot that happens in this movie, a lot of finer details and time shifts that I'll kind of breeze over for the sake of this introduction. But yeah, what'd you guys think about the movie?
I liked it. I actually thought it did a really good job of being pretty creepy from the very beginning, from the very first scene. There's like a super intro scene where super intro, where basically they show like when the curse happens and like the guy like killing his wife. And I mean, you have no clue what's going on, and the movie hasn't even like officially started yet. Right after that, from then on, to me, I was always sort of on edge, a little creeped out. And I thought the movie did a pretty good job of building everything and just maintaining its creepiness.
All right, Nika, how do you feel about it?
Honestly, I did really like it. Not as much as I was hoping to, but I'm coming at this from a perspective of, and I've mentioned this in previous pods, I play a lot of survival horror video games, and this is one of the seminal works that influenced a bunch of those, particular games such as Fear and stuff like that. And so it was really cool to see where a lot of stuff sort of got its start in this. And honestly, like I was pleasantly surprised by it. I wasn't overwhelmed, but I enjoyed it.
So let's go ahead and start breaking this down here, brick by brick, like a Lego. So we'll start with the music, and naturally, we'll start with Dan. So Dan, how'd you feel about the music? If I had to kind of color your vision, I would say there was exquisite use of bells / chimes, light instruments sounding menacing.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. That was a very astute observation.
I try.
But no, I mean, I liked it. I really liked the use of drones and the sort of atmospheric drone and kind of, they did some sort of, I don't quite want to say pitch bendy stuff, but sort of like drawn out melody phrases. And then I really liked when, a lot of times when the ghost was actually there and not just sort of like creeping up towards the character, but actually there, the music would shift and become sort of like more of the bells and the atonal kind of arpeggiation style kind of things. That was really cool.
There was also kind of like, like the frenetic, like something similar
That's
to
a
what
good
you'd
word
see
for it.
maybe Insidious, like the on the violin, like the shredding, like the.
Oh yeah.
The what now?
Dan understands my musicality. Go ahead, Dan. Explain that scene. Explain that sentence.
Frenetic very well described it. I thought was a great word.
Nico, any thoughts about the music?
So, yes, and I wanted to, I don't know if you even call this music or just the sound design, but I really liked it the number of times where, I don't know what the medical term for it is, but whenever there's like a rush of blood to like around your ears and it just gets that kind of like tinnitus sounding thing, but it's only temporary. I really liked the inclusion of that for letting the audience know that the ghosts are nearby. I thought that was really clever. But more than that, I actually really like the minimalism of it. It felt very claustrophobic insofar as there wasn't much to hear except for exactly what the characters were doing. Like they might be walking around, you would hear them shuffling and not like the dance. That would make this very different. But like it's a very it's almost haunting, I want to say, that there was such minimal usage of sound that wasn't diegetic. And by diegetic, I mean happening in the story.
That's a good point, actually. The Foley and the character movements was very pronounced, which I liked.
So another thing, Nico, first off to your point, that is known as pulsatile tinnitus.
Thank you.
When the blood
Always
goes
wondered.
through to your head there. And Dan, when you said drones, it took me a split second because I had a quick vision of Kayako, the ghost, sending a drone after somebody. And
Yo, that
President
would be
Obama
lit.
has joined the chat.
but no.
Yo, it's like that one remake of Romeo and Juliet.
Oh,
Just-
where they got modern.
Yeah, it's gonna
With
be a
Leo
mod-
DiCaprio.
Give me my
Bustin'
long sword,
DiCaprio.
ho. Bust out the gun.
be Juan with drones.
Hey,
Yo.
it could happen.
So I just looked it up actually, and the thing I was talking about, the concept of there being the sort of minimalism, I remembered it. It's called Ma, which means negative space. It's sort of, according to my very scholarly source, it can be roughly translated as gap space or pause, like the space between two structural parts. And there was a ton of Ma, of that negative space in The Grudge, and I think that I don't know if you could say you used it well because it's like you're using an absence, but it was well done. I thought it was really well done.
I think you play with an absence.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Right. Moving on from what we could hear to what we could now see. How do you feel about the visuals?
I actually really liked them, particularly in the first half and in the last, I want to say 15 minutes or so. The camera angles and the cinematography, it was really, really limiting. And that was kind of the point. We got these camera angles that were so, I felt, abnormal isn't the right word, but just unusual to what I feel like a lot of people are used to. A lot of top down angles and shots where they're like looking right up from the bottom, and they try and make everything look as cramped as possible, which I think definitely adds to the tension of the fact that like most of it's taking place in a house.
Okay. Now that's a pretty good layman's opinion. Let's go to someone who knows what he's talking about. Dan,
Okay.
how do you feel?
I think he knows a lot more than I do. But I was saying, mine is definitely not as well thought out as that. I was just gonna say, I liked a lot of the visuals, the ghost creatures, walking on all fours and almost slithering isn't quite the right way to say it, but slithering, crawling, whatever, down the steps.
In my skin.
These wounds, they will not heal.
Yes.
And they didn't in this movie.
Heal.
That's actually the premise.
They really didn't. But I thought it was actually really well done, and it creeped me out. And
How do you guys feel about the makeup on the ghosts? Do you think that was well done?
Yes, and I think that was also in other movies. I think the pale kind of makeup is used to represent a corpse-like appearance, but there was also always kind of the dark circles under the eyes, and it really does. I forget what mask. There are some masks that look like
ghost masks.
Believe it, Ghostface.
Yeah, I don't know. I Googled it and I saw a bunch of them. I just don't know what their names are called. But they do, I think, kind of dehumanize someone. And it's a cool effect without having to go overboard with like CGI or anything else like that. It's a nice practical effect that you can do. One other thing I did kind of want to bring attention to, one or two cool kind of shots. There is the shot on the security footage where we see
just gonna mention that,
who is basically attacked by a massive shadow. It's cool how like he walks away and we slowly see a shadow grow on the screen as if it was like on some footage. And then it expounds because then the shadow kind of eclipses the security camera and looks directly into the lens.
That was a really cool shot.
That's awesome. Like, that's so cool.
One of my favorite things about that is it happens, you see that same videotape 3 times, and each time you see more of it. So the first time you just see like the ghost kind of grab the guy, and then that's it. The second time you see the ghost grab the guy, the spirit thing, grab him, and then draw him into the room. And then the third time you see him draw him into the room and then walk back out and then go to the camera. So I thought that was cool that they kind of revealed a little bit more and more each time.
Something else that I really liked about the visuals, and this is going to sound very strange, but I really liked how bad the quality was, or at least the fact that you can tell this movie was made in 2002. The way that I watched this was at first on a YouTube upload, and the quality was just not very great, and it was glitching out a bunch, and that added to a lot of the sort of terror that was going on because it sort of like messed with my perception of the reality of things. But even more than that, I think Dan has a story that he's probably dying to share about his experience watching this.
Yeah, Dan, go ahead and let him know.
So there's a point in the movie where one of the characters is being chased by the spirit kind of thing, and she's trying to run away, and she jumps into her bed, and she can't see the spirit or anything like that. So she knows it's kind of following her, but can't see it yet. So she jumps into her bed, crawls under the covers, and then she ends up turning the TV on, and it's a news report. And then over the course of maybe a minute, the TV starts glitching and getting all weird and scary, and the sound gets all weird. And then every once in a while when it glitches, you start to see like a ghost kind of face and like a really messed up, screwed up face. So I was just watching it, and then right as soon as the full face is fully shown, my stream died and it just paused and it froze right at that frame. And I literally had to restart my PlayStation to actually like get it working again. And it was actually really creeping me out because that's like, that was the perfect or the least perfect or whatever, the worst or best time for that to happen. It was actually really creepy.
Dan then sent the image to myself and Nico, just in case it was cursed.
Yes.
So we could all be cursed.
Yep.
So shout outs to our
We're
boy
in
Dan.
it, we're in it together.
bud.
So actually, speaking about being in it together, how do we all feel about maybe some of the differences in this movie? Because I do believe this is the second international movie we've reviewed on this pod, first being Train to Busan.
Are we not
Actually,
counting
sorry, it's
Howl?
the third. Howl. Howl is also from England.
Yeah.
But it's Western, so I do kind of take that into account.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've reviewed Train to Busan, which obviously is massively different from this movie. So how do we feel about, this specific movie, some of the differences between this and maybe some differences in a generic American horror?
That's tough. I mean, I feel like I haven't seen too many examples of non-Western horror, so I don't have a very solid, stable opinion on that, I guess. But I will say the Train to Busan and this one both felt a little bit more deep, more psychological. Like I feel like watching Ju-on, there was more thinking that I had to do, which I liked. I really enjoyed that. There were more time skips and just things that I really had to kind of focus on that to me added to the storytelling. And I guess that's it. There was more storytelling in it than just scary.
That's a good point. Nico, anything you could say?
Yeah, so the way that I approach this is when I was in grad school, there was a book that I read called Snow Country by Yasunari Kawabata. It is one of the classic works of Japanese literature, and I remember just not liking it at all because the style of writing was so weird. But I think I would probably appreciate it more if I went back to it now. The reason I bring this up in reference is because I don't think there's a protagonist in this film. And there's not really... The characters don't really do so much. More of things happen to them. Mm-hmm. And I think that is a very sort of abstract way to think about narrative, particularly from a Western standpoint. And because of that, it adds to the sort of, it would be a little too on the nose to say foreign nature of it, but just the sort of disconcerting, unsettling nature of it because you don't understand what's happening. You don't have the exact same, exposition, rising action, climax. Like the actual structure of the narrative is very different from what a lot of people are used to. So I actually, I really appreciated that, particularly even though the sort of bits with the time skips and the perspective changes can be a bit much to sort of stay abreast of. I appreciated the more disjointed and abstract narrative approach.
You want to read something, a Japanese novel that's abstract, you should go read IQ 84 by Haruki Murakami. That'll point you in the right direction. So that's a good point though, Nico. I can agree with that on some points. I do have one or 2 points that I also think. So first, this movie came out, around about 2002. In my personal opinion, and I might catch some flack for this was a low point in American horror, I think. I would say
Is this American horror?
No, not this. I'm saying American horror when this movie came out was at a low point.
Oh, okay.
So, because I think if we go back and we look at, and not just American, but also largely speaking Western, but mostly American, in the 80s, 80s and before, we had some dope horror movies. They were outstanding. And I think, I don't know what happened, but around this time period, a lot of what was happening was remakes that were terrible, reboots that were garbage.
Resident Evil was in 2002.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, it was.
I don't really know, man. It's a lot of bad stuff was happening around this point in time. I just felt like the creativity wasn't there. It speaks volumes that 2002 this was released. 2004 the American remake came out. This thing didn't even have time to properly sit before we dropped an American version. I think that we look at this movie and it has a lot of time jumps. And it can be a little bit disorienting at first, especially because they don't give you any years and they kind of expect you to pick up on names and, things of that nature. And as Americans, we don't immediately click with some of the names. Also, we don't the subs aren't always necessarily the best at identifying relationships. For example, sometimes they'll use like One-chan, which means like, oh, it's like big sister or older, but they'll instead use the person's name, which sometimes doesn't help if we're trying to establish a relationship, to say, oh, this is your sister. Like, that doesn't help me establish the relationship if you don't use the word sister. So that's definitely something. But no, there's a lot of time jumps and stuff in this movie, which at the end of it, you look back and you're like, oh, that was actually pretty cool. And like Dan said, you actually have to think. And on top of that, there's also kind of, especially back then, and this was something they teach you in psychology class, as Americans, our society is very individualistic. But stereotypically speaking, and this doesn't apply to every single person, but rather as a generalization, Japanese society is more collectivist, meaning people are more, looking at the greater good. We can even see that Rika, you said there's no protagonist. I agree with you. I would say she's probably the closest thing to a protagonist because she's the character we see the most. She volunteers her time to take care of the elderly and makes house calls even when she's not supposed to do it. Like she was off.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think just the level of creativity and the level of thinking we don't see. Now, in terms of a remake, I thought it was honestly kind of a spit in the face because, I mean, what did they change in the remake? They swapped around some names and they put a white woman in Tokyo.
Colonialism.
I mean, that's what they did though. Like, I don't know why. Like, it's not that this movie did poorly, right? From all accounts, this movie did well.
Yeah, it's one of the landmark pieces of Japanese horror that I can think of.
It absolutely is. And I mean, looking at the box office, it made 500 million yen apparently, but 3 million overseas, which is...
Do you know what the budget was? Because I have a feeling that it was smaller, not minimal, but definitely smaller.
So I don't know. It probably was smaller. But then you look at the American remake, which had a $10 million budget and made 187 million at the box office.
Huh. That's odd. I honestly don't know how to take that. Maybe it's just because so many of it was just so new to American ideals. I have no idea.
Well,
man.
also, when you say 147 million, do you mean US dollars or yen?
No. So the American movie made in total 187.2 million US dollars.
Huh.
Okay.
That's pretty damn good.
Because
on a $10 million budget. The Japanese movie, I don't know the budget, but it made 500 million yen, which I just typed it in.
Close to 5 million, 4.5.
Yeah. 4.5 mil. And it made an additional, I want to say 3.6 mil overseas here in America. So it came close-ish to that 10 million mark. But again, the American one made 187 million.
Well,
do you think that some of that might have to do with, and this is complete conjecture on my part, so I don't have any real strong frame of reference for a lot of like seminal Japanese horror. Do you think that maybe there was just less of an audience for horror over there at the time?
No, I don't think that's it at all.
Huh.
I think what happened was the Japanese Grudge, as far as I know, didn't get a US theatrical release.
That makes sense.
I could be completely wrong, or even if it did, it didn't get like a widespread one.
Didn't it get a US theatrical release?
Yeah.
I don't think it did.
Oh.
That would definitely explain the sort of disparity, because one had twice the audience. But
yeah, I don't know. I think they literally just remade it and then released it. So I don't know. No, I'm not feeling too hot about that. I'm always a proponent of, I hate remakes, especially ones that come out like a year after it happened or a year or two after it. I mean, think about it. If it was released 2 years after the film was released, I mean, they pretty much probably saw it and immediately got working on an American one.
Yeah.
They had to.
Yeah.
So that's unfortunate. But I mean, it's happening all over the place. I mean, we know they're going to remake Train to Busan. We know they're going to redo. There's another Korean movie that's not a horror, but it's called The Gangster, the Cop, and the Devil.
Oh, yeah.
They're gonna be redoing that, and it's just like,
Old Boy.
I don't understand why we can't just show the original, which is almost always better. Like, why can't we get the good stuff? Why
Because
do we
white
always
people
have to
don't
get
like subtitles.
pretty much? Why can't we get just like a better version, but have to read? Like The Man from Nowhere is another example of one that I heard rumors of a remake, but like that's not going to work.
I mean, Taken.
True enough.
Take is the same movie. It's just not as good as Man from Nowhere.
True enough. So speaking of cultural differences, actually, to kind of move it to a different point, this movie makes a lot of use of like cat noises specifically, which I found to be odd. So I'm going to pose this question to you, Dan. There are cultures that believe cats are actually good creatures. Cats ward off evil. I know that, there's the stereotype of the quote unquote witch's cat, a black cat, but I think that's largely like a Western / Christian almost belief.
Yeah.
In a lot of other cultures, cats are seen, particularly in Middle Eastern cultures, cats are seen as good. Like they will ward off evil. Cats are connected to the spirit world, like that kind of stuff. So do you think there was any particular reason why they used cats and, had the boy like meow and stuff? Is it just for the jarring animal noise, or do you think there's anything more to it?
I don't know. And that's an interesting point because I actually did kind of think about that briefly. I don't know if there's much other significance. If there was, I didn't catch it. I kind of feel like it is a little bit more for the jarring nature, especially when the cat is like super meowing and and then you find out that it's the kid who like opens his mouth and it like super meows. That was a little weird. So to me, I took it more of as a quirk / creepiness thing, but there probably is some sort of deeper meaning there that I just didn't catch. That I just don't know.
I mean, I just tried to look over some stuff, and aside from like, for some reason, giving me the maneki neko, which is the cat that's kind of like the one that's like beckoning. It's got like the bent paw.
You see in the restaurants and shit.
Right.
Yeah.
So like aside from that, I can't really find too much other than like generic like, oh, fishermen like cats because the cats would like watch them catch fish and shit.
Yeah, I was saying, man, I don't really see cats a lot in like real life Japanese stuff, but I feel like in anime, a lot of times there's like a black cat.
True.
Sailor Moon, Kiki's Delivery Service.
Ghost stories.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no.
Ghost. Can we review Ghost Stories?
It's a terrifying show.
Depending on the dub, that's going to be wild. So as we kind of, keep going, trucking on here, keep it brief, but what's your favorite scene in the movie? Starting with you, Nico.
Pass. Let me think about it.
Dan, favorite scene?
My favorite scene, probably when the original detective, Toyama, when he goes back to the house and he's going to burn it down and then he starts seeing visions and, it ends up being his daughter in the future. But I just thought it was really cool, those different visions, because nobody else really saw visions like that. But I thought that was cool. And then he sees the ghost creature like crawling towards him and he, falls down the stairs, and then the two detectives come in and they, end up dying and everything. I just thought that was a really cool scene with the effects, the crawling down the steps and just the dream sequence.
That was pretty dope. Nico, I'll expand it for you. You can name your favorite scene or a scene you thought wasn't very good.
So I actually have an answer for both of those.
All right, hit me.
I really just love the scene when we're watching on the security cameras and it slowly coalesces into the Grudge's eyes, just like opening up at you and staring at you. I thought that was just masterfully done. The part that and maybe you guys will be able to clue me in on this as to what was really going on, but I thought the sort of like the eureka moment where I forget who it was, but one of the characters suddenly realizes that, oh my God, all of these people have been putting their hands over their eyes.
Oh, yeah.
That was Rika.
That was Rika? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't understand the significance. Like, congratulations, you learned that people do that when they're scared. I just thought that was a little awkward.
From what I could draw from that scene was meant to reflect the terror of the wife because keep in mind, like the husband was coming to kill her. And I think that's supposed to be like how she was. That was my interpretation of it at any rate. I could be talking some real shit.
What was your favorite scene?
I definitely think, aside from the camera scene, my favorite scene is actually between the two detectives. So we've got Nakagawa and Igarashi. And Igarashi goes, "Oh, yo, boss, by the way, mad people been dead in this house." And Nakagawa just looks over at him and he's like, "Are you shitting me?" Like, it's just like, wait, like people have been dying in this house and like we just haven't investigated. I mean, they had because Toyama had investigated it, but then he quit and like everyone else who investigated died. So like,
Case closed.
I don't know. Like I felt like that would be something you'd want to look more into, right? Like everyone who goes here dies.
I've got a theory that the house actually tries to draw you into the house.
I agree.
Yeah, there are a few times where I was like, that doesn't make sense why that person would go there at that time without having something draw them there to then kill them.
I do think so. And I think as well, right? Like we see, because for example, the house draws Rika back by luring, and this is some real Kayako shit from the house, by the way. I got to give it props. It registers Toshio to her friend Mariko's class so that Mariko would come checking on Toshio when he doesn't go to school, so that Mariko could then make the call through to Rika to then get her to come to the house.
Yeah.
Well done, house.
So I have a question about that. Not that particular scene, but I guess sort of the nefarious malintent of the house. So earlier in the pod, we mentioned how the detective, I forget his name, tries to burn down the house but fails because he sees his
Toyama,
daughter.
yes.
Yeah, Toyama. Do you think that either that was the house fucking with him or just like he was dumb? Because I feel like if they actually got the house burnt down, then it potentially could have saved everyone some trouble.
Yeah, I think that was a defense mechanism.
I agree. I think it was a defense mechanism from the house because it distracted him. But I thought it was just interesting because that was a power, like visions like that, especially visions of the future that actually happened. Because when I first saw it, this is the second time I've seen this movie, or third maybe. But the first time I saw it, I thought maybe that was a delusion, but it wasn't. It was actually the future. And like, I was like, wait, what? Like, that's pretty crazy, right? That's pretty wild. But no, I do think that if he had actually managed to burn down the house, that would have maybe solved the problem.
Yeah.
Now, well, let me ask you guys this though. Do you have any one major criticism of the movie that you could come up with? Any one kind of, concise one?
No dates.
Okay. No dates is definitely a contender.
Not for me. I mean, I think there are a few little things, but as a whole, not for me.
I guess from my perspective, aside from the no dates thing, which I definitely agree, dates would have for sure helped. Rather than describing, because it described the shifts in perspective as like a person or like a person's story, which I don't know how I felt about that. But I think that, and again, part of the appeal of the movie is that like we never get a full grasp. Like we don't get a textbook on what the curse can do and can't do. I thought that the curse, like it would mess around with some people. Like it messed around with Rika a ton. Like the ghost just one time just stared at her. Or like when she was taking a shower, they put like a hand in her head or something like that. But other people
It actually talked with her too.
The ghost just like straight up kill. Like, okay.
Do you think that they were more human with Rika because she was a caretaker?
Yeah, I would have to think so. I had a theory that the mother didn't want to kill people, but then she definitely killed the shit out of Izumi. So I don't know. We do see though that not everyone who gets killed comes back, but almost all the women who get killed come back.
True.
The two schoolgirls who died, they come back as well, as does Rika. So I don't know. I don't know about that. But let's get to it. If you were in the situation, what would you do?
That's really tough because, like, barring, bringing a fucking match and lighting it and not getting distracted, I don't think that we could do anything different. In previous episodes of the podcast, we've posited, like, is this a universe where horror movies exist? And in this circumstance, I don't think that even matters. Like, I think everyone's just kind of screwed.
So what I would do would end up being a moot point anyways, but one of my sticking points about a lot of horror movies is people like to do things by themselves. And I would always, if like crazy shit started happening in my house, I'd be like, yo, come with me. Like, we're doing this shit together. So I would have grabbed like a buddy to go help me burn down the house or to go investigate whatever. That being said, there's the scene when the detective is in the house and then the two other detectives come in and the ghost kills both of them. So my buddy theory is kind of debunked there, but still that's what I would have done. Grab somebody else.
Maybe get a priest.
Oh shit, yeah. Good idea.
That was what I was going to say. I surprisingly didn't ever really see or notice any kind of counter to that, right? Like spiritually. And I get that some characters may not have known, but I feel like Toyama he had a suspicion the house was haunted, at least, because he tried to burn it down. So I would have come straight up with like a priest of like every sect. Like I would have brought me a Shinto priest. I would have brought me like a Buddhist. I would have brought like a Christian,
the Pope,
Muslim, Hindu, everyone's coming for this ride because I feel like a good old exorcism might solve this. You know who they need?
Yeah, they need what's his name and what's her name?
Ed.
Yep, Ed.
They need
Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Yeah.
That's exactly who they need.
They needed Ed and Lorraine Warren to come.
I would watch that movie in a heartbeat.
A crossover, that'd be kind of dope.
Yo, and you want to know how it should end? Like the grudge demon, like what's her name?
Bathsheba?
Kayako. Like Kayako's about to come through and like kill Lorraine, and all of a sudden Annabelle the doll shows up with the knife. Like, no, only I can hurt her.
Fucking Vegeta moments.
Okay, so if Ed and Lorraine did like solve the case or whatever, you know how they have the room of trinkets and stuff?
Oh yeah.
What do you think they would take? What would be the
family
memoir?
picture?
Family
Yeah.
picture? Okay.
Definitely the family picture.
Yeah. Okay. I was thinking maybe like, I guess the family picture makes more sense, but I was thinking maybe Hitomi, I think, has the little bear thing.
Oh yeah, on her purse.
Yeah.
But she's not important enough to the curse. So the picture makes sense.
So it's about time we get down to the brass tacks here. How do you guys think the critics reviewed this one? You guys think it was good or no?
I'm going to say,
if you had to guess,
generally positive, not overwhelmingly positive, but generally positive.
I would say the same.
Maybe like
I could
60,
see some
65.
audiences really disliking it though because of the more abstract storytelling. I will say that much.
So, and I don't know why this is, when you go onto Rotten Tomatoes, it doesn't have a rating.
Nice.
Huh. Well, that's
But
odd.
that's not going to stop me. So
okay, so I just Googled Ju-on and there are audience reviews, and the first one is, "This very family-friendly movie was great. I took my kids to it who are the age of 6 and 7 and also took Baby Yoda. We all burst out laughing."
Wait, what?
I think you got the 2020 one when they reference Baby Yoda. They have
No,
to.
swear to God. Google Ju-on, Ju space O-N. And that's how you can like see it. It'll probably come up with the hyphen as well, but yeah, I don't know.
So IMDb does have it at 6.7 out of 10. How do you guys feel about that?
That's kind of right at where I would put it.
So
personally.
we'll go ahead and keep it consistent. We'll extrapolate that to 67 out of 100, 67%.
Mm-hmm. That's
And
right where I would put it.
That's where you put it,
Yeah.
Nico?
I feel like we always, or not always, but like often rate things in the high 60s. Am I wrong about that?
I'd give that about a 69% chance of happening.
Nice.
Ooh. Yeah, no, I would give it like a 67 out of 100. It's difficult to sort of gauge how to rate this against other movies just because it does have such a different sort of twist on how it works with narrative. But on the whole and on its own merits, I think a 67 is about where I'd put it.
I'm going to revise my answer. I would say maybe like a 75.
Oh, you
Actually-
bastard. I was going to say 75.
Oh yeah, I enjoyed it. Actually, I
Actually,
liked it.
Yes.
yeah, no. After talking with you guys about it, I think I appreciate it more.
Bandwagon.
No, you're not
bandwagon.
allowed.
Okay, fine. All right, it's okay.
So Justin, you put it 75.
I do. I give it points for the fact that, you know, the director was pretty young, first off, right? He wrote it as well. It's an original work, so I give it a little bit of props for that. I also, although it is based on an urban folklore thing, but I also think that, you know, I love the cinematography in this movie. I like the time skips. I think if you went back and watched it a second time, you would pick up on things that you didn't see before. Little
Absolutely.
hints, little clues and all that. I do 100% think that as well. You know, like, I can't recall seeing a horror movie before, and granted, I am not by any means prolific in my viewership of Japanese horror. I only see the major ones really, but I can't remember seeing something like that before that. You know, like I can't remember seeing all the different shifting perspectives. In a way, it really did make me feel like I was reading a book.
Interesting.
Honestly, yeah, they're like different chapters.
Yeah. And like every chapter being told from like a different point of perspective. What was the one book that we had to read in high school that was told from stream of consciousness? Do you remember what that was?
As I Lay Dying.
Yes. So I don't think this was quite stream of consciousness, but how that book would like shift and every chapter you'd be like someone else. I thought it was cool that like every chapter, we're seeing how the curse impacted someone else. I thought that was pretty cool. It could be disorienting, but if you really buckle down and focus and give the movie its due attention, it does reward you. And I'm always willing to reward that reward. So now we have a choice to make here. Does this get the "don't open that door" stamp of approval? And if it does it deserve the golden stamp?
I would say yes and no. Yes, approval. No.
I would
golden.
also say yes and no.
I say yes and no. Yes and
Nice,
no.
nice.
So I'm going to 1, 2, 3.
Yes and no.
Yes and
What
no.
are we saying? What are we
No,
doing?
no, hang on. Audience, I am stamping in my notebook. Okay. I have stamped this with the "don't open that door" stamp of approval, but it does not get the golden stamp of approval. It only gets the pewter, tinsel.
Tinsel.
Tinsel? Are we around some mistletoe?
What color is less than gold?
Silver.
Silver?
But we
Cop-
have no bronze.
Okay.
So it has to be a color that's like, okay.
Purple.
It's gonna be the okay, purple. It gets the purple stamp of approval, but not gold. Yeah. So you heard it from us here. Anyone have any last comments to make before we bring this one to a cease?
I do. I like.
Oh snap! I think this is the first time.
I know.
Yeah.
I like that the little kid, Toshio or whatever, he
Toshio.
just goes around and just like knocks shit off the wall. And just like throws trash around people's houses. Like, how did those houses get to be so, or that house get to be so messy? Like, this dude literally, like at the beginning, you keep hearing stuff like at night. He literally must just walk around and like throw trash around and just knock paintings.
Yo,
off.
you know,
I had
you know-
the
you-
same thought.
You know what had me fucked up though? Like, Kazumi thought that was the old lady. I was like, how the fuck do you figure?
Right.
Like, I was like,
Damn, bitch,
how
you
the
live like
fuck-
this?
How the fuck do you figure that like this old ass woman is running like running around knocking something off, like run back to her and lie down? What?
Some fucking speed racer shit.
I don't know. But that's a good point, Dan. And shout outs to the actor who played Toshio, Yuya Ozeki. He did a good job for
Toshio.
Yo, he said his name.
That's how he says it. That's how he says it.
Yeah.
Nico, anything from you?
Yeah, no. The only other thing I can say is that, you know, hats off to social workers and anyone who actually does shit like this for their real life job. I would never go in and just volunteer to clean someone's fucking house.
Same.
I mean, hey, it's definitely a door I wouldn't open. So that's been it here from us at Don't Open That Door. As always, if you like what you hear, please give us a follow. Our Facebook group, Don't Open That Door. You can catch us on Instagram at Don't Open That Door Pod. And yeah, just stay tuned. We post funny stuff occasionally, introspective, maybe something to make you cry. Not really, just funny. So that's been it from, Nico, Dan, and Jess. Have a great night. And please, don't open that door.